How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Family. We are back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the transfer activity that all the FPL managers have been doing over this international break. We're going to take a look at a couple players at the top of the most transferred in list, as well as a couple at the top of the most transferred out list for all outfield players. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel, as well as turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Also, give us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, from price changes to injury news and anything in between. And lastly, make sure to give us a follow over on Twitch so you can see when we go live for our preview and deadline streams, which will be starting back up next week, Monday for the preview stream and Saturday for the deadline stream. There will be a pinned comment down below to let you know the details on that as well. So without further ado, let's talk about our partners for this FPL season with Fantasy Football Scout. So if you haven't heard about Fantasy Football Scout, they have a fantastic members area during the regular season. It's £25 for the membership, and that lasts the entire year. And during the off season, they give a 20% discount. But if you have missed that discount, fear not, you can still get the membership for £25, and it's fantastic. You can see the membership area just behind me. You have a bunch of different stats that you can use, powered by Opta stats, and create your own custom tables. You have the Rate My Team tool. You have the season ticker, player comparison tools, a whole array of things that you can use to help elevate your FPL game. So use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to these exclusive tools to help elevate your FPL game. Sign up now. So the second most transferred in player this week is none other than Reece James, currently up to 5.9 million, with close to 250,000 FPL managers deciding that they need the English right back in their FPL teams now. And he is going to have somewhat of a tricky run of fixtures, but I think Chelsea are playing so well, top of the Premier League, that it's definitely warrant the transfer in. I brought him in on my Gameweek 8 wildcard alongside Ben Chilwell, and that has helped me massively, getting a lot of returns over those last 4 weeks with 3 goals and an assist and a few clean sheets to boot with that as well. But their fixtures, as we mentioned, a little bit trickier. Leicester away could be tricky, although they haven't been as good as they were last season around this time. Man United at home, that should be pretty straightforward for Chelsea, you would think, based on United's form. Watford away should be fairly straightforward, and West Ham away could be a bit tricky. So maybe a couple fixtures in there could be a bit on the more difficult side. Wouldn't necessarily warrant a Chelsea double up in defense, but their attacking returns for Reece James and Ben Chilwell, but more so Reece James with the goal scoring, have been so potent that I think you cannot go without Reece James over the foreseeable future. 21.5% owned, just over the 20% mark. That's when you know it's starting to get a bit dangerous, when he does get a clean sheet or a return, and it could damage your FPL rank. On the season, 4 goals, 3 assists with a 2.51 XGI. I mean, that's just great. It's fantastic. Definitely overperforming there. Creating chance after chance with 15 on the season, with 3 of those being big chances created and getting 2 big chances for himself on the season. He's been doing exceptionally well, closing in on Cancelo's original price, which was 6 million. To start the season, they were 5.5. Everyone was kind of looking at them saying, are they nailed? You know, we're not too sure. And Reece James originally wasn't, but now the amount of form that he's been in, I think he is basically undroppable for Thomas Tuchel's side in any game that really matters too much, basically. And Tuchel even said in his press conferences that, you know, my fullbacks, they're wingbacks. They get in the box and they shoot and they'll create chances. They're basically wide forwards in a sense, and they will get involved. So that's very good to hear as an FPL owner, and hopefully a lot more FPL managers can get the same points that I've been getting over the past few game weeks. But Reece James surprisingly wasn't the most transferred in player. So let's see which Crystal Palace player that is. And I was actually quite surprised to see this, but Conor Gallagher is over 321,000 transfers in over this international break. I think he originally started 5.5 million or somewhere around that mark, and he's now 5.8 million. He's got a decent run of fixtures coming up. The next 3 are very, very favorable. Burnley away, Aston Villa at home, Leeds away. You would expect Palace to do well in all of those. 15.1%, and he is doing exceptionally well. 4 goals, 4 assists on the season with just under a shade under 5 xGI, so definitely overperforming that. 5 big chances, 17 chances created, 15 shots inside the box. He's an all-action midfielder that is getting involved in Patrick Vieira's new system. He's basically kind of playing as the most advanced out of the 3 midfielders in most cases in that midfield 3. Sometimes operating as a number 10, is also on set pieces when Milivojevic is not on the pitch, a veteran of the game who typically takes penalties normally, but Zaha usually gets those when he's off the pitch, and Gallagher gets the corners or direct free kicks or indirect free kicks when he's not. So Gallagher could be quite good. And Palace, I definitely underestimated them. I'm curious to see where I put them in my ranking for the beginning of the season, when I kind of see if I can guess what the rankings will be for the Premier League. I think I put them down quite low, so apologies to all the Eagles fans. Crystal Palace has been doing exceptionally well. Really enjoyed their style of play. Very, very refreshing to see. A lot of young talent in there, and I think Gallagher has definitely been a part of that. Still more to come from the likes of Elise as well, who's also a very cheap midfielder that could play on that right-hand side, and he could be another one that we take a look at, and we might see him on a future transfer radar on this channel as well. But Gallagher at the top of the transfer in list. Maybe I have to consider him, because I haven't really done so, as that budget midfield slot over the likes of Mbeumo, who hasn't been getting the goods as Gallagher and the likes of Smith Rowe have been doing so. Those are for the top 2 transfer ins. For the transfer outs, the top transfer out is actually Robert Sanchez, but we're only going to take a look at outfield players, and that's because he's suspended. So who is the second most, or in this case, third most, if you include Robert Sanchez, that is most transferred out in game week 12? And the second most transferred out is, funnily enough, Danny Ings. I thought a lot of managers would have gotten rid of him. He's the second most transferred out of active outfield players, as it were. Third most on the whole list, because Robert Sanchez, being a goalkeeper, is the top of that chart. But 7.7 million, originally started at 8 million, just hasn't really worked out with Aston Villa. And Dean Smith went on a 5-game slide, and it was ultimately sacked and lost his position there, which looks to be being taken over by Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard, which could be very interesting to see how they kind of line up. But originally, Danny Ings was brought in, and what we thought was he was going to be playing down the middle. Ollie Watkins, who had played wide left for Brentford, would go on that side. Leon Bailey would be on the right-hand side. They would have Buendia in the 10, and they would have Douglas Luiz and McGinn playing as that midfield pivot. However, that hasn't really transpired. Dean Smith favoring a 3-5-2 system, with Ings and Watkins being mainly isolated up front, trying to create for themselves. And you can see that with the stats over the last 4 game weeks. Just the 1 goal for Danny Ings, not really involved too much. Only 4 shots inside the box. That's 1 a game. That's not ideal for him. Although in the beginning of the season, when he wasn't getting too much, 3 goals, 2 assists, he was still ticking along somewhat nicely at the beginning of the season. I remember him getting, I think it was 3 returns in 3. But their upcoming fixtures can be a bit tricky. Palace have been playing well. Brighton are playing well as well. Man City's always a tough outlet, as well as Leicester. So could be very tricky for the Aston Villa faithful. And Ings could be on the sideline as well with a potential injury. Has always been a very injury prone player up until last season, where he kind of shook that off a little bit, but seems to have been in and out of the team. Not sure what Gerrard's going to do with him. I understand the 121,000 plus managers that have transferred him out, so I would personally stay away from the Aston Villa forward for the time being. But he was not the most transferred out player. Let's take a look at the Chelsea fullback that was the most transferred outfield player going into this game week. And that player is Marcus Alonso, close to 129,000 transfers out for game week 12, back down to 5.6 billion after he shot up in price, because the first few set of game weeks he was in the team playing week in, week out, and Ben Chilwell was on the sideline. He got 1 goal, 1 assist in that time, created some chances, got a few shots inside the box, slightly overperformed his XGI, but has since which not seen a kick of the ball. Chilwell has gone on a basically a scoring spree. He had 3 goals and 3, as well as his goal on international duty as well. And he has just basically taken the limelight over Alonso, who has been sidelined, has been mainly picking up cup minutes or just very few and far between appearances. And you can see on the stats for the last 4, a whole bunch of donuts. He hasn't featured at all in the Premier League over the last 4 game weeks. So if you've been hoping that Alonso might play a little bit more, it doesn't look likely unless there was an injury to the likes of Ben Chilwell, and we would not want injury wished upon anyone. With Chelsea's upcoming fixtures, as we mentioned, for Reece James, Leicester away, Man United at home, Watford away, West Ham away, Alonso might see a couple of these games potentially, as they are quite close in proximity to one another. I can see him maybe being utilized in the West Ham game due to his height, as he often is utilized for that specifically, as more of a goal threat as well, typically, than the likes of Ben Chilwell from set pieces. He gets in the box a little bit more, I would say, than Ben Chilwell as well, who kind of stays in the half space mostly, whereas Alonso will push into the box, much like how Reece James was getting to the byline and pushing into the box on the opposite flank. So if you do have Alonso, I would say it's probably time to get rid of him unless something changes there. And maybe, when it's going to be rotation season in December, where the games are, very, very, few days are spaced out in between them. So there's a period where you'll have a game on Boxing Day, and then you have a game 2 days later. So that's the 26th of December, and then a game on the 28th. So maybe there'll be some rotation there. With the likes of City and Chelsea, who basically have 2 full 11s, you'll probably see Alonso get one of those games in one and be benched for the others. But we'll have to wait and see when that time comes. But if you do have Marcos Alonso, I would say I'd be moving to the likes of Reece James, which a lot of managers seem to be doing, or the likes of Ben Chilwell, or maybe even one of the center backs like Antonio Rudiger. But unfortunately, Marcos Alonso no longer probably in our FPL considerations. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Which players are you looking to transfer out this week, and which ones are you going to be bringing in this week, assuming that they are fit and available for Game Week 12? And that is going to do it for our Game Week 12 over the international break edition of the Transfer Radar. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel, as well as turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, from price changes to injury news and anything in between. As well as give us a follow over on Twitch so you can join us live for our preview and deadline streams, which will be starting back up next week for Game Week 12. There'll be a pinned comment down below to let you know the details on that as well. And lastly, make sure to use the link down in the description so that you can get access to the Fantasy Football Scout membership area. It's going to give you all the access to all the tools that I use to help inform you on these videos as well. It's going to help elevate your FPL game. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.